In our last segment, we saw that John Gay wrote The Beggar's Opera, which sort of turned the whole operatic world in England on its ear and put poor George Frederick Handel out of his very cushy operatic job. So now we're going to see what happened to Handel after this happened. And it turned out to be a great thing for musicians for time eternal, probably. So Beggar's Opera comes along. Everybody wants to go see that. Nobody wants to go see Italian opera anymore. Handel needs to find a new gig. So what he did was discovered a sort of a niche market. So in England at this time and in most of Europe, when Lent came around, you couldn't go to the opera anyway. All the theaters closed, all the opera houses closed, the concert halls closed. So, all those fun things went away for that 40 days of Lent. So here's an opportunity. So Handel figures, if I can just do something religious during this period of time, that'll be acceptable because we can do that during Lent. So what he did was to take all the best parts of opera, the singing parts, the orchestra, the storyline, and what he did was get rid of all the parts that you don't really have to have. So it's not on stage. Well, it's on a stage, but it's not a theatrical stage. So they're not wearing costumes. There's no scenery. We got rid of all the acting. So you have the story, you have all the wonderful music, but you got rid of all the things that are sort of considered the bad parts in terms of being allowable during Lent. So he created this new thing that we now call the oratorio. So everybody knows at least one Handel oratorio because everybody knows Messiah. And it is Messiah, not the Messiah, which people often call. The title is just Messiah. We're not going to look at that one because, frankly, everybody knows the Hallelujah chorus. You know lots of pieces from that. We're going to look at a different Handel oratorio just to give you a little different perspective on it. So what are our 3 parts that we kept from the opera? Actually, 4 parts. It's going to have an overture. So we're still going to have that nice orchestral piece that starts us out, gets everybody settled down and ready to go. And we're going to listen to one of those in a minute. We're still going to have arias, because after all, that's mostly why people went to the opera, to hear all their favorite singers do all their best stuff. And we're also going to have recitative, because we still have to get our storyline connected, and that's what we use recitative for. It's the dialogue part or the narration if you're trying to tell a story where you don't actually speak to each other. And then we have choruses. The Hallelujah chorus is the be-all and end-all of choruses. But Handel wrote, I don't know, maybe hundreds of those choruses. Even Messiah has, I don't know, maybe a dozen. So there are lots of Handel choruses out there. The oratorio that we're going to take a look at is called Samson. So obviously we're on a biblical subject still. Not all of his oratorios are biblical, but we're going to stick with one of those today. So the story of Samson, people know Samson's a very strong man who's married to Delilah. He defeats their enemies, and Delilah's not all that. She's not probably the best wife for him. And in the end, they cut off his hair, he loses his power, and he dies. So it's got all the elements of everything. You've got a love story, twisted though it might be. You've got the great hero for his country, and then you have his doom at the end. So we're going to have 3 examples in your YouTube videos to watch for this. First, the overture. As you listen to that overture, think about the elements of Baroque style. Listen for polyphonic texture. Listen for use of basso continuo. Does it have a harpsichord? Is there a harpsichord in there? Listen for that. See if that's playing a continuo part with the bass line. Listen for lots of ornamented notes, lots of trills, turns, other kinds of extra notes added to the melody line. Think about how fast the harmony changes. Is this one of those continuous melodies that we talked about? So think about those elements of Baroque style as you go listen to the overture from Handel's Samson. All right, now you've listened to the overture. You're all settled down. Now you're ready for the show. So this would be a concert performance. Might even be in a church. So the choir will be on the stage, the singers will be on the stage, and your orchestra will be there in the front or even on the stage, depending on what kind of, how big a stage you have available. So the story goes along. The second thing that you're going to listen to is a chorus. This chorus is sung, Samson and his soldier friends are getting ready to go to battle. And they're singing about how they are going to teach the enemy about the power of God. So it's really all about that. And the great thing about this, it's in English, so you can easily understand. If you have trouble understanding, I will probably also find a translation page for you, because even if they're singing in English, sometimes because there's so many notes and things get drawn out, people have a little trouble understanding that. So the name of this particular movement is Then They Shall Know. The titles are not like really exciting most of the time. They just take the first line of the text. So then they shall know, and then it talks about how the power of Jehovah and all of that. Again, listen for those elements of Baroque style. Now we've got singers instead of just instrumentalists, and a lot of singers. So you may not hear quite as much ornamentation. Obviously, the more performers you have performing, the fewer of them can be doing lots of extra notes, because otherwise it gets a little too chaotic. All right, so now go listen to, this is from the first act, I guess we could call it, even though it's not really a stage play, of Samson, Then They Shall Know. This is a chorus. All right, now you've heard an overture and you've had a chorus. I'm not going to ask you to listen to a recitative, because frankly, those aren't all that interesting to listen to by themselves. Instead, we're going to go to the final aria of this production. So at this point, Samson has already died. All of his people are in deep mourning. It's a very sad time. So this final aria is called Let the Bright Seraphim, which you think, what? What's that got to do with Samson? The character, they do have characters even though they're not acting during this oratorio. The character who sings this is identified in the score as an Israelitish woman, sort of an Israelite or something. It's kind of an odd way, but that's the way that it's written into the score. So she is singing to the rest of the people about how we should be glorifying God here, and that Samson has, really served his people well, that he has now gone to a better place, and the bright seraphim, the angels, are greeting him, and he's in a better place, and let's be happy about that and celebrate all the good parts about this. This is an interesting aria because first, we've got this sort of character who doesn't really have much to do with the story. She's just going to be our sort of narrator and tell us about how this is really not a bad thing. But the other thing that it has that's really interesting, and the video is particularly interesting for you to watch, is that it's using a really different kind of trumpet. Remember I said that the trumpet is a very popular instrument in the Baroque period, but that it's a much higher pitched instrument. So as you look at it, you can see that, you can hear that it's much higher, but you can also see that it's smaller. This is like a little tiny trumpet. And it's got some weird looking keys. And so normally our trumpet, it's like this, we've got our 3 valves. This one, the valves are kind of off on the side, is like a double frame. It's very odd. The Baroque trumpet just comes, it's odd sometimes. They come in different designs, and I think that one's particularly interesting. But it's a good chance for you to see and hear that Baroque trumpet style, and along with the soprano who's singing it. It's also a good example of a da capo aria. Remember, we have a da capo aria when we have an A section, we have a contrasting B, and then when they come back to sing A again, as we see throughout the Baroque period and even into the classical period, the second time around, that's the singer's chance to put in all those extra little ornaments that their audiences would have expected. So as you listen, and the great thing about these videos is you can go back and listen to that little section. You can listen to the A, you could skip the B and listen to A again and really get a sense of how she's changed it the second time to incorporate all those lovely elements of Baroque style that the audiences wanted to see, that were a good reason for Handel to create this oratorio, so they could still get to hear all that during Lent. And it gives you a chance to hear a really wonderful Baroque trumpet, which is also doing lots of interesting ornamental things. So Samson, oratorio, we have overture, we have a chorus, we have an aria. Good chance for you to listen for all those elements of Baroque style as you enjoy this beautiful music.